Have you ever had this debate with somebody? Quality over quantity. Would you rather have a little bit of a very good thing or a whole lot more of an okay thing? Well, it can go across many different aspects of our life, and the fantasy football version of it is efficiency over volume. Now, in some areas, I'm not going to be much help. If you're wondering whether your spouse likes quality over quantity, then you're going to have to talk to your spouse about that. I'm not going to be able to help you. But if we're talking about would you rather have volume over efficiency, that I can help with, and that's what we're going to talk about today.
Yeah. Analytics off the chain, all the channels not the same. Jake and Kyle, you know the name. Headliner Nation, we running the game. I'm a headliner.
Yo, what is going on, Headliner Nation? Welcome back to the Fantasy Headliners. Kyle here to break down some volume versus efficiency statistics. And this is going to kick off kind of a prolonged series here where I'm going to be breaking down running backs, wide receivers, and tight ends, volume versus efficiency in each video, and then comparing them at the end to determine who are the guys that are on the higher end, on the lower end, and who are the guys right there in the middle that we want to have as those volume and efficiency guys to really help push you over the top. In today's video, we're kicking it off with running backs, and we are going to start with the volume statistics. And then the next video that we do will be running back efficiency and so on until we finish it up. So hit that like button for me down below if you appreciate the content. But before I jump into it, the Fantasy Headliners Draft Guide is available for pre-order right now. But if you want to get yours for free, all you got to do is head over to prizepicks.com or download the PrizePicks app, create an account using code word headliners, and then you're going to deposit $20 into your account. They're going to match your $20 deposit, giving you $40 to play with. And then in July, when our Fantasy Football Draft Guide launches, we are going to send you one for free. So make sure that you take advantage of this now. And thanks again to our friends over at PrizePicks for sponsoring the Draft Guide this year and giving you all this opportunity to get it for free. Now, let's go ahead and jump into the content of the video talking about volume for running backs. And here is what we're going to be looking at statistic-wise that is going to help us get to the end of what we need to establish here. Now, our volume stats that we are going to be taking a look at here today: rushing attempts, rushing yards, and rushing touchdowns. Three of the main ones right there. And then we're going to take a look at red zone carries and goal line carries. I think this is important when we're talking about volume to also include guys that are being used in the most important situations. That's when they can score a touchdown. And then we can't forget passing statistics either. We need to get some targets, receptions, and receiving TDs in there to make sure that we're giving all running backs a fair shake. Now, there are going to be some names excluded, and the names that I'm taking out of today are going to be Melvin Gordon, Javonte Williams, Aaron Jones, A.J. Dillon. Those four right there, we all know they're in backfields where they're going to be really basically splitting a whole lot of time. So I wanted to focus on guys who don't really have like a clear split in the backfield as of this moment. Now, that could change depending on when you're watching this video. That could change at some point in time. But as of right now, Gordon, Williams, Jones, and Dillon, those guys, a clear split that we know is going to happen. Derrick Henry was injured just far too much last year, so his statistics are going to be thrown way off, so I'm going to take him out of it. Christian McCaffrey, same thing, just hurt way too much last year. His statistics would also be thrown off here in the volume. Clyde Edwards-Helaire and Miles Sanders. Now, why they might be the lead backs as of right now, these are also two guys that at points last season were hurt or they had issues with keeping the backfield to themselves. They have some competition dealing around them. They have some issues that have kind of come over from last year. And again, if we were to include them, it's going to throw the stats off and it's going to make them look worse than they actually are. So those are a few guys right there that I wanted to just exclude from this because it's just not going to help in any way, shape, or form. It is going to throw off the numbers and it's going to make them look worse than it actually is. And that's not fair to them or our process. We know stuff about these guys already. I'm taking a look at the guys that, again, have the backfield to themselves as of right now. That could possibly change and should be the lead back on their team. So let's go with rushing attempts first. No surprise that at the top, Jonathan Taylor, Najee Harris, and Joe Mixon lead the way. I think Antonio Gibson coming in fourth with 258 carries out of these 19 players might be a little bit surprising to some people because he was up there last year in terms of volume. And for him to be in a situation where he is right now where we feel like he's just not getting the type of touches that we would like, hopefully, there's a little bit of sunshine out there that we can find with Antonio Gibson. We'll talk about him more as we go along. Dalvin Cook and Alvin Kamara rounding out the top 6 there. And really guys that you would expect to see. I think Austin Eckler and James Conner might be a little bit on the lower end there from what some people expected. Leonard Fournette as well down at 180. But again, he doesn't have Rojo or anybody to really hurt him this year. He's kind of got it to himself as of right now. Yeah, we might have, a little bit of a rookie appearance there. We might have a guy coming up in Keyshawn Vaughn that could get in there a little bit, but I'm not too worried about them as of right now. Taking a look at rush yards, again, no surprise there that Jonathan Taylor is number 1. Number 2, Nick Chubb, then Joe Mixon, then Najee Harris, Dalvin Cook rounding it out. Again, Antonio Gibson, a surprise climb here. Antonio Gibson with over 1,000 rushing yards last season. I think people tend to forget that he did put up those type of numbers. Zeke coming in at number 7, and then one guy that, again, might be a surprise to somebody because he didn't play in as many games as we had liked. He only played in 11 games last year, but Elijah Mitchell with 963 rushing yards out of this group here had the 8th most rushing yards, 963 rushing yards. The dude almost ran for 1,000 yards last year in a backfield that is crowded and, again, missing some games. Elijah Mitchell should be seriously considered on your fantasy football draft day because if you're not, you're missing out. And I think people on Twitter right now are trying to find the next rookie player that could jump in and take touches away from his counterpart. Elijah Mitchell seems to be a little bit of a target with that, and honestly, I don't think he should be. Moving on to rushing touchdowns. With rushing touchdowns, again, Jonathan Taylor leading the way. I think we're seeing a little bit of a consistent factor here with Jonathan Taylor. Rushing touchdowns, Damian Harris, James Conner up there with 15 apiece at number 2 and 3. Joe Mixon coming in with 13. Austin Eckler cracking the top 5 with double-digit rushing touchdowns this year. And then Zeke Elliott coming in with 10 there. Obviously, on the lower end, Saquon Barkley hurt last year, not very good in the red zone. Alvin Kamara with only 4 rushing touchdowns, though. That is something to keep an eye on for a guy that has been so good for so long. And for him to finally get as many touches on the ground as he did last year, only 4 rushing touchdowns, we need to see a little bit of a climb there. Red zone carries. Jonathan Taylor, again, leading the way, 89 carries in the red zone, followed by Austin Eckler. And again, Antonio Gibson making his way into the top portion of these lists on the volume side. I know he hurt a lot of people last year, and we love Antonio Gibson here. And there's been some issues with finding some consistent touches, but he got volume last year in some very specific areas that it's really good to see him in at. Now, again, some guys that might have been a little bit surprising. You go all the way down to 13 and 14 with Zeke Elliott and Josh Jacobs. Zeke only getting 38 touches in the red zone last year. Part of that was because of Tony Pollard and seeing him get a little bit of a run as a receiving back last year and even some touches on the ground. Still though, Zeke should be that guy in those short yardage situations that they're going to. And in those situations, like in the red zone that are high percentage, we need to have him out there a lot more often, I feel like. Goal line carries, again, Jonathan Taylor running the way there. James Conner coming in at number 2. Antonio Gibson, one more time. Antonio Gibson popping up there. And then another surprise one, Austin Eckler. 16 carries at the goal line. Not your prototypical goal line back. Not a guy that you expect to be that bruiser that's going to punch it in. But a majority of the time when they were within the 5 and they were running the football, and Austin Eckler was the guy that was getting the carries, and that is good to see. And we'll see more about that, not just now, but when it comes to the efficiency as well. Hopping on over to the targets now. Hopping on over to targets. Najee Harris obviously led the way last season. Now, this is one thing that we're going to catch here with Najee Harris over the course of the last couple of videos. The volume was there. We know it was there. You know it was there. I know it was there. But there are some downfalls to that. Austin Eckler with 88 targets, absolutely. Leonard Fournette with 83 targets. That's something that I love carrying over to this year. Even though we saw the volume so far on the running side of the ball kind of be on the lower end of the spectrum than what we would like for Leonard Fournette, we know he was utilized quite a bit in the passing game last year. Now, if we can get those statistics running the football to bounce up, like we've talked about with Leonard Fournette, this is a guy that could be an absolute beast this season. DeAndre Swift in his limited reps last year, dealing with some injuries and obviously a bad offense. 76 targets put him at 4th among these running backs here, which was good to see for DeAndre Swift. Hopefully they continue that this year. And if we kind of work our way down here, again, Saquon Barkley, not really good on the running side of the football last year, helped out with targets at least a little bit as well. Jonathan Taylor, for being the #1 overall running back last year, really surprised to see him all the way down with only 48 targets, finishing below guys like Devin Singletary, David Montgomery, and Antonio Gibson. Falling below them, will they see more? Will they see a little bit of a tick and a rise in that this year with Matt Ryan? I don't know. That remains to be seen, but something to watch out for. Receptions, again, Najee Harris. We know Najee Harris, Austin Eckler, Leonard Fournette, DeAndre Swift, those guys are going to be up here. Josh Jacobs, a little bit of a surprise, coming in at 54. Had more receptions last year than Cordarrelle Patterson. Keep an eye on that. Then Alvin Kamara and Zeke. Guys at the very bottom there, surprising to see Dalvin Cook. For as good as he's been in both facets of the game, to see him all the way down at number 16 with only 34, that's a little bit of a surprising trend that hopefully he can buck this year and go on a different path. Now, receiving touchdowns, Austin Eckler led the way with 6. Not surprised to see Cordarrelle Patterson there with 5, tied with Alvin Kamara in the receiving touchdowns. And then Najee Harris, who's missing an E in his name, my apologies. Antonio Gibson, Joe Mixon, James Conner, Leonard Fournette, DeAndre Swift, Zeke Elliott, Saquon Barkley, Jonathan Taylor, and then Jacobs, Montgomery, Cook, and Harris all coming in at the very bottom with 0 receiving yards. Now, I've kind of just gone through these stats here real quick, not breaking anything down too crazy right now with all those stats. I wanted to put them on the screen so you could see everything because I want to spend some time talking about what their overall score was. And their overall score was really just taking and averaging where they finished in each of these categories and then giving them the average finish place. So no crazy formula in here or anything like that. It's honestly just averaging out where they finished in terms of all these volume stats and using that as a way to kind of decipher what we are looking at for each running back in terms of that volume and what we could end up seeing moving forward. It may surprise you, but Austin Eckler coming in at #1 overall, almost a full point advantage over Jonathan Taylor, who came in at #2. Now, Jonathan Taylor is still going to be my running back 1 coming into this season, and I'm sure he will be for everybody. For Austin Eckler, though, I mean, listen, there's a good chance that they're going to try and not really replace some of the carries that he got last year, but try to give him a little bit of help, not give him as much volume on the ground maybe as he saw last year, just to keep him fresh, help him keep fresh, help him stay out on the field as much as possible. So for me, Austin Eckler is still a guy that I don't mind drafting, but again, they've added people to that backfield to potentially help with that. So I don't know, depending on where his draft day ADP lands, if he's a guy that I'm going to be spending too much on. And the other person to come in high here at #3 overall, Antonio Gibson. Are you kidding me? Antonio Gibson coming in at 6.37 with an average here, just because he did finish so well in so many volume categories. Now, when we start talking about efficiency and that video comes out, we're probably going to be looking at a little bit of a different score from Antonio Gibson. But even if he doesn't get the volume of a full-time running back, I'm starting to kind of come around to if you can get him at a decent enough price, you draft him as your RB3 come draft day. That could be a huge win for you and other fantasy owners that could slot him in as a running back 3 where you don't need to depend on him to win weeks, but you can depend on him to just help out. That would be big for him. Najee Harris at 6.5, Joe Mixon at number 7. I mean, this is going to be a debate between these two, excuse me, for a while coming up. I've already debated it a little bit. I'm fully on board with Joe Mixon over Najee Harris. And again, another reason we'll see coming up in the efficiency video why that might be. Najee Harris scoring very well in volume. We knew that he got a lot of rushing attempts on the ground, had a lot of rushing yards, had a lot of receptions, had a lot of receiving yards, really lacked in touchdowns though. And then Joe Mixon kind of, fell behind Najee Harris in terms of the volume for receptions, but he was right up there in all the other categories and outpaced him as well in touchdowns. So with those two things coming very close, Najee Harris, Joe Mixon finished very close to each other. Zeke Elliott at an 8.37 coming in at number 6, a guy that's just really forgotten about now, that if you were to start running back in your drafts, you might be able to get Zeke Elliott in the 3rd round. Leonard Fournette with 9 overall coming in at number 7, Alvin Kamara at 8, James Conner at 9, Josh Jacobs at 10, all of them surprises over Dalvin Cook. Nick Chubb coming all the way in at number 11. Now, Nick Chubb might be a little surprising on the volume side because his touchdowns were just a little bit down last year. And again, just not a ton of volume in the passing game. But again, when we talk about efficiency and what you're looking for, Nick Chubb is going to come up, and his name's going to come up a lot. So we'll see that here. We'll see here that coming up soon. David Montgomery at 13, Damian Harris at 14, Cordero Patterson at 15. Cordero Patterson was a guy that saved a lot of people last season because he was taken off the waiver wire, and he definitely helped you win some weeks. Being a little bit careful with it again this year. The good news for him is that running back wise, not going to have a whole lot of competition running back wise. Cordero Patterson seems to be the guy at this point that they want to utilize in the backfield. But how do they plan on utilizing him is one of my questions, because towards the end of last season, they got away from utilizing him as a pass catcher out of the backfield and just weren't giving him a whole lot of touches. Now, they do have Damian Williams now, which will be very interesting to see how that plays out. I think if you draft Cordero Patterson, you also maybe try to draft Damian Williams late to cuff him, because that might be somebody that you want to take a shot at. And then finishing it out here, Devin Singletary, DeAndre Swift, Elijah Mitchell, Saquon Barkley. Saquon Barkley, injuries, ineffectiveness, a lack of touches that really bring true value to him is what hurt him last season. But, this is how it plays out right now. This is how it plays out in terms of volume from last year and what you're kind of looking like in an average of all the volume categories listed together. And again, I'm going to go through an efficiency video here coming up right after this one. After, when I get done with that video, then we're going to put all the numbers next to each other and we're going to take a look at the differences. So if you're watching this video now, you're going to want to catch the efficiency video as well, which will be out the day after this one comes out. So, if you're watching it when it comes out, then it will be out tomorrow. If you're watching it later, then it may already be out. It would be the video directly after this one. So, ladies and gentlemen, that's how this works out. Taking a look at volume and what certain guys did for the volume last season. Now, do me a favor, hit the like button. Let's get this video to 1,000 likes. Can we get this video to 1,000 likes? I think we can. Make sure you subscribe if you're new here to the Fantasy Headliners and leave a comment down below based off the volume only. Let me know, who would you rather have this year, Austin Eckler, Jonathan Taylor? I'm pretty sure Jonathan Taylor is going to win. So let's look at this. Let's say, who would you rather have this year? Najee Harris, Joe Mixon, or Austin Eckler? Which one of those guys would you rather have this year? I believe a majority of people will say Austin Eckler, but I wonder if Najee Harris and Joe Mixon are creeping up on him. Let me know in the comments down below. But I'm going to get out of here for now. All of you stay safe and healthy. Thanks for tuning in to this video, and I'll catch you on the next one here on the Fantasy Headliners.
Analytics off the chain, other channels not the same. Jake and Kyle, you know the name. Headliner Nation, we running the game. Y'all stuck on 3rd down. Your content's plain Jane. Headliners on top now. We gonna move and change. Podcast off the rip. Draft guide, so legit. fantasy world, our game tight. You know we about that chub life. Stuck in a rut and you need some motivation. Head to the channel for this headliner nation.
I'm a headliner.